All right, let's talk about something I think we've all run into. It's called the abundance trap. You know that weird feeling you get when having more choices somehow makes you feel less happy? Yeah, that's what we're diving into.
So, here's the big question, right? Why does having everything you could possibly want sometimes feel like you have nothing at all? We live in a world with endless options, but that feeling of real satisfaction, it feels harder and harder to find. It's a real puzzle, and it's something that affects pretty much all of us. I mean, seriously, think about it. You've had a long day, you finally crash on the couch, you fire up your favorite streaming service, and then what happens? You scroll and you scroll. For like 20 minutes, you're just looking at a sea of perfect shows, and you end up so exhausted you just rewatch an old sitcom you've seen 100 times. Or how about this? You're at a restaurant, they hand you a menu the size of a novel, and suddenly picking dinner feels like you're taking your final exams. That feeling? That's the abundance trap, right there in the wild.
Okay, so what is going on inside our heads when we're faced with all this stuff? It's really not just you. It's not some kind of personal failure. It's actually biology. So let's get into the science of why we feel so dissatisfied. The big idea here is something called decision fatigue, and it's exactly what it sounds like. See, your brain's ability to make good decisions, it's not endless. It's more like a muscle, or maybe even your phone's battery. Every choice you make, big or small, what to wear, what to have for breakfast, which email to open first, it trains that battery just a little bit. By the end of the day, that muscle is tired, that battery is in the red. And what does your brain do? It starts looking for shortcuts. It makes impulsive choices, or just defaults to the easiest option, anything to stop the mental drain. So to really get this, it helps to know that there are basically two types of people when it comes to making choices. This comes from the work of psychologist Barry Schwartz. First, you've got the maximizers. You might be one of these. These are the folks who have to find the absolute single best option. They will research everything to death. Then you've got the satisficers. Satisficers are just looking for good enough. As soon as they find something that checks their boxes, they stop looking. Now you'd think the maximizer would be happier, right? They got the best thing. But nope, the research is super clear on this. Satisficers are way happier with their choices. So why do maximizers have such a tough time? It's because they're carrying this heavy two-part burden. First up is opportunity cost. For every choice they make, they're also thinking about all the cool features of the things they didn't choose. So the more options there are, the more they feel like they're losing out. And then there's the big one, regret. The pressure to pick the perfect thing is so high that they're always looking over their shoulder wondering, did I make the wrong call? Was there something better? It's exhausting. And the data totally backs this up. It's a classic paradox. Look, going from having no choice to having a few choices, that's awesome. That makes us way happier. But there is a very real tipping point. Once you cross it and the choices become just excessive, our actual satisfaction starts to go down. It's like an upside-down U. More is definitely not always better. Okay, so if endless choice is the problem, what's the fix? Well, it's going to sound a little weird, but the solution is to embrace limits. Yeah, that's right. Let's talk about how constraints can actually be a form of freedom. This phrase says it all. Good enough is best. And look, this isn't about settling for less or being mediocre. Not at all. It's about being smart. It's about knowing when putting in more effort just isn't worth it anymore. Think of it like this. You can spend 30 minutes to wash your car and get it pretty clean. Or you could spend 7 hours detailing it to perfection. For most of us, that 30-minute wash is good enough. And it gives you back 6.5 hours of your life to do something, more important. So if you want to put this into practice, there's a really handy little framework called DECIDE. First, D, define the decision. Know what you're actually trying to solve. Then E, establish a time limit. Give yourself a deadline so you don't agonize forever. C is for consider your options. Do your research. And then I made the decision. Just make the call. Now the last two are clutch. D, don't change your mind. And E, embrace it. Just own your choice and move forward. No looking back. But here's where this idea gets really cool. Embracing limits isn't just a way to survive your trip to the grocery store. It's actually a secret weapon. It turns out that constraints are one of the most powerful drivers of creativity and innovation. Let me give you a great example. You've heard of the painter Henri Matisse, right?
Well, late in his life, he was really sick, he was old, he couldn't even stand up to paint or sculpt anymore. By all accounts, his career should have been over. So how on earth did he go on to create some of his most famous art after that?
The answer is he used constraints. He came up with his method. He decided what to preclude, what to get rid of, and what to promote. So he precluded or threw out all the fussy little details and a giant box of paint colors. Instead, he promoted simple, iconic shapes and just a few bold, flat colors. And what came out of it? His incredible paper cutouts, a whole new art form that was born because of his limitations, not in spite of them.
And it's not just in painting. We see the exact same thing in music with the jazz legend Thelonious Monk. Now, at the time, the hot new thing in jazz was bebop, which was all about playing a million notes a minute, super fast, super complex. So how did Monk come along and create a sound that was completely different and totally his own? Well, he did the same thing Matisse did. He precluded the excesses of bebop. He just chose not to play all those dense, flashy runs of notes. Instead, he promoted simpler, sparser sounds. He promoted asymmetry. He even promoted silence. He literally used the space between the notes as part of the music. Once again, the real innovation didn't come from adding more stuff. It came from the power of deciding what to leave out. Okay, so we've seen how this abundance trap messes with us on a personal level, and how constraints can be the way out. But now we need to zoom way, way out. Because this isn't just about us anymore. We are about to face this exact same trap as a whole society. This quote just nails the problem we're facing. For pretty much all of human history, our entire economy has been based on scarcity, not having enough of something. But what happens when intelligence itself, the thing that drives all productivity, suddenly becomes abundant, basically free because of AI? Our systems, they're not built for that. They're going to see this incredible abundance and register it as a catastrophe, as poverty. So yeah, we've moved way beyond feeling overwhelmed by streaming services. We're staring down the barrel of what's being called a socioeconomic singularity. This is where our basic systems for how we work, how we use money, how we find meaning, they could just shatter. Think about it. When AI can provide near infinite productivity, what's a human job worth? How does capitalism even work in a world like that? From here, it looks like there are about 3 ways this could go. Path 1 is kind of the default: digital feudalism. That's where a couple of giant corporations own all the powerful AI, and the rest of us just exist. Path 2 is what happens if we panic: the great fragmentation. Every country builds its own AI fortress, and we end up in a new kind of Cold War fought with algorithms. But there is a third path, a harder one. It's called human symbiosis, and that's where we make a conscious choice to build new systems where AI is a tool that enhances human purpose instead of just replacing it. And that really brings us to the final and most important question. The whole abundance trap thing, it started with something as small as picking a TV show, but it ends with this. If the game we've been playing for centuries, the game of efficiency, of productivity, of sorting the world, is basically over because AI is just going to be better at it than we are, then what's our new game? What are we supposed to do? In a world where we have an abundance of everything, maybe our purpose isn't about doing anymore. Maybe it's finally about being.